Welcome to Organized Chaos, the podcast dedicated to helping seven-figure companies grow to nine-figure ones by turning HR into rocket fuel for their growth. I'm your host, Nahat Kairala, and I've been helping companies do just that for more than a decade. In each episode, I'll dive into HR topics that have a significant impact on your company's growth and leave you with actionable advice that will help your business reach its full potential. Let's dive right in and start organizing all that HR chaos. Hello and welcome to episode 10. Today, I'm addressing a topic that every scaling startup eventually faces. When is the right time to hire your first HR leader? Hiring your first HR leader is a pivotal step in scaling your startup. The right HR leader can work wonders for your company as it navigates exponential growth. Over the years, I've helped numerous founders make this decision and participated in selecting the right HR leader for their businesses. In this episode, I will guide you through this decision-making process and also talk about the characteristics of the ideal HR leader for startups, as well as some pitfalls to avoid during the hiring process. Let's dive right in and start with the timing considerations you need to make before hiring your first HR leader. There are 3 indicators you should look for while making this decision. If any of these elements exist in your company, then it's time to make the hire. The first indicator is when your startup is exiting the product market fit stage and entering the growth stage. Product market fit is the first stage of every startup's life cycle. It's when you're still trying to figure out if your product or service has the market and traction needed to take your company to the next level. A startup generally exits this stage and goes into the growth stage once its revenues get into the 7 figures and team size reaches 20 to 40 employees. At this growth stage, the focus shifts from validating your product to scaling your operations. An HR leader becomes essential to manage increasing complexities in recruitment, onboarding, and culture building efforts, among other things. They can help maintain cohesion and drive strategic HR initiatives that align with your company's growth objectives. When you're in growth mode, having an HR leader in place ensures that your startup expands according to plan, while avoiding common HR landmines that fast-growing companies tend to step on. By introducing an HR leader during this growth phase, you lay a strong foundation for sustainable scaling and enable you and your leadership team to concentrate on strategic initiatives rather than day-to-day HR tasks. The second indicator is when you, the founder, or your leaders are spending too much time on HR tasks. This shift in focus can detract from driving growth and innovation, which are critical to your startup's success. HR is important, but you and your team are better equipped to do the things you folks specialize in. When leaders spend too much time on things like managing interpersonal issues and coaching managers on how to uphold company values, it signals the need for dedicated HR leadership. How much HR work is considered too much is different for every founder. So consider this a thing if you start feeling that HR-related work is eating more of your time than you are comfortable with. An HR leader can take on these responsibilities and ensure that the company's culture and values are upheld while freeing founders and startup leaders to concentrate on the core business. With an HR leader in place, there is a more structured approach to handling employee relations, performance management, talent development, and all the other HR programs a company develops over time. The third and final indicator is your employee headcount. Regardless of the first 2 indicators that I talked about earlier, your startup needs an HR leader once your headcount hits 50 employees. Also, a 2023 study by Zelt revealed that, on average, first-time HR hires happen when a company's headcount is between 40 to 50 employees. Stats aside, I can confirm this number from my experience in working with 150 plus companies for more than a decade. Every time your company hires an employee, it creates an administrative, compliance, and general HR burden on your team. What ends up happening is that you and your managers will start drowning in HR work over time, work that you won't be equipped to handle because you don't have the expertise for it. When your headcount reaches 50 employees, managing HR functions without dedicated leadership can lead to inefficiencies and oversight, which could cost the company dearly. A larger team means increased complexity in handling recruitment, employee relations, and compliance management. Having a dedicated HR leader at the 50 employee mark allows founders and leaders to focus more on strategic priorities rather than getting bogged down by HR tasks. This proactive approach ensures that as your headcount grows, your HR capabilities do too, and that will support both your current operations and your future expansion. So now we've talked about when you should hire your first HR leader. But what about the ideal profile of this leader? Every founder knows that the startup life is not for everyone. You need a special type of individual who can thrive in the startup world, and that is no different for the HR leader's role. An ideal HR leader for a young startup is someone who is a strategic self-starter, someone who can thrive with minimal direction and proactively identify opportunities for improvement. This leader needs to be flexible and have initiative. They don't just wait for problems to happen. They anticipate them and develop solutions before these issues escalate. They bring innovative ideas to the table and shape HR strategies that align with the company's vision and goals. This quality is quite prevalent in HR leaders who have successfully navigated startup environments and have already proven their ability to adapt and influence the key stakeholders in the company. Cultural fit with the founders is of great importance when choosing the first HR leader for a startup. This individual must resonate with the company's core values and ethos. Their approach to HR also needs to align with the broader organizational culture that the founders want to build over time. Respect between the HR leader and founders is equally important because it creates a collaborative dynamic that is an essential ingredient for strategic alignment. This respect facilitates open communication and enables the HR leader to provide candid feedback to the founders and leaders. A strong relationship with the founders helps the HR leader navigate the unique challenges of a startup and ensure that HR initiatives have the necessary support to effectively add value to the business. A versatile and hands-on approach is essential for an HR leader in a startup setting. The dynamic nature of startups requires HR leaders who can seamlessly switch between strategic planning and operational execution. In most instances, the HR leader is also the startup's first HR hire. So that person will also be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the HR function, in addition to all the strategic work that an HR leader is expected to own. They need to be comfortable setting high-level HR strategies while also being ready to dive into the details of day-to-day HR operations. A startup HR leader needs an agile mindset to adapt quickly to changes and implement efficient HR processes. This means streamlining recruitment, optimizing onboarding, and enhancing employee engagement, which are all foundational for a growing startup. Finally, a startup HR leader should be approachable and foster a culture of openness and collaboration. They need to be able to build trust with employees and in the HR function. If employees refuse to engage with HR, then there's very little the HR leader can do to influence the company's culture and proactively address issues that arise. Now let's talk about some common pitfalls that founders make when hiring HR leaders for their startups. Pitfall number one is overemphasizing compliance during the hiring process. While compliance is a necessary aspect of HR, overemphasizing it when hiring your first HR leader is a mistake. Compliance tasks such as state employment setups, HR policy creation, and payroll are important, but can often be outsourced or handled effectively by HR software. The true value of an HR leader in a startup lies in their ability to impact culture, strategy, and scalability. Prioritizing candidates who excel in these areas ensures that HR contributes to the startup's growth and innovation. By concentrating too much on compliance over other areas, you risk missing out on candidates who can offer strategic insight and transformative leadership. That's not to say that you should hire someone who doesn't know anything about HR compliance work, but don't make it your focal point. And don't dismiss candidates who don't have HR compliance as a top strength. Pitfall number two, hiring an HR leader with no startup experience. An HR leader who has not experienced the startup world is unlikely to have an immediate impact and add value to a scaling startup. The startup environment is unique and is characterized by rapid changes, limited resources, and a need for swift decision making. HR leaders in well-established companies do not operate with this level of urgency and don't carry the same load as their startup counterparts. An HR leader with first-hand startup experience understands the dynamics of a scaling organization and can navigate them effectively. Their familiarity with the pace and challenges of a startup allows them to implement HR strategies that are both agile and scalable. Without this experience, there's a risk of hiring someone who may struggle to adapt to the startup's fast-paced nature, which will eventually lead to inefficiencies or strategic misalignments due to bad decisions. Pitfall number 3, hiring a first-time HR leader. Make sure that your first HR leader has proven HR leadership experience. An HR leader who has previously held leadership roles brings a wealth of knowledge and insight that is invaluable during critical growth phases. They have likely encountered many of the challenges your startup is facing today and will face tomorrow, and they can use their experience to solve them effectively. Without proven leadership experience, the risk of appointing an individual who may not fully grasp the complexities of HR in a high-growth environment increases. The only time I would be willing to hire a first-time HR leader is if I received a glowing recommendation from someone I trust who has worked closely with this individual. Otherwise, this is a non-negotiable issue for me. Pitfall number 4, not matching the HR leader's skill set with your company's lifecycle stage. Hiring the HR leader who possesses the ideal skill set for your company's lifecycle stage is a strategic move that can significantly impact your startup's success. Each growth phase presents unique challenges and opportunities, which requires different skill sets from an HR leader. For instance, a startup in its early growth stage needs an HR leader who excels in recruitment and building foundational HR processes, while a company in rapid expansion and scaling might benefit more from someone with expertise in operational scalability and change management. Assessing your current and future needs will help identify the skill set and experience level you need to target while hiring your HR leader. This ensures that your HR leader is capable of addressing immediate challenges, but also positions them to support long-term growth objectives. A final note here is that your first HR leader doesn't have to be a full-time hire. You can opt for a fractional HR leader who fits the profile and slowly scale up the work from there. For more information on what to outsource in HR and how, check out episode 8. Well, that's all for this episode. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about the hiring process in startups, why I think it's broken, and share my thoughts on how to fix it. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a review wherever you get your podcasts. This will help me spread the word about organized chaos and keep the show going. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to suggest for the show, please send me an email to hello@organizedchaos.fyi. For more content and resources, make sure to check out the website at organizedchaos.fyi. See you on the next one.